Jai Shri Gurudev. I am Dr. T. Yunus Pasha, Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry and Analysis, Professor and HOD, Faculty of Pharmacy, Adi Chunchanagiri University, Bijinagar. Today I am going for presenting a talk on research methodology of PhD coursework comes under the Adi Chunchanagiri University. Before I deliver a talk over this research methodology coursework, that too on the first unit, I wanted to deliver a few words on the scope and objectives of the PhD coursework. The first scope of this PhD coursework is the coursework provides a comprehensive foundation in research methodology, equipping scholars with the skills needed to design, conduct, and analyze the research effectively. The second scope of this is it covers the essential aspects such as research design, literature review, study methodologies, statistical analysis, and ethical considerations in scientific research and publications. Let me go for saying objectives of the PhD coursework. The first among them is to enable scholars to develop a systematic approach to identifying research problems, designing appropriate methodologies. The second objective of the PhD coursework is to train researchers in critical literature evaluation, ethical publication practices, and the use of statistical tool for data analysis and interpretation. Now let me go for on unit 1 of this research methodology of a PhD coursework, and the name of this unit 1 is Introduction to the Research Methodology. In fact, it has got several subheadings, and the first subheading of this the first unit is definition of research, second one is the review of literature, and third one is the writing and citation. I am going for covering on the two subheadings under of the first one, that is meanings and objectives. Before I say meanings or the objectives of research methodology and the research, let me define the research. The term research. Research is an organized and systematic way of finding answer to questions. In connected to the definition, various social and behavioral scientists have defined the word research in different ways. Some of the most popular definitions which I wanted to put before you is the Pocket Oxford Dictionary says that research is nothing but endeavor to discover facts by scientific study, course of critical investigation. And the second definition, as per the Collins Concise Dictionary, that a systematic investigation to establish facts or collect information on the subject. It is also defined that the research is systematized effort to gain the new knowledge by Redman and Mori. Research methodology is nothing but it is a way of explaining how a researcher intends to carry out the research. It's a logical, systematic plan to resolve a research problem. A methodology details a researcher's approach to the research to ensure reliable, valid results that address their aims and objectives. In fact, in connected to the research, there are different types of researchers are there. Some common types of the researchers are research methodologies include quantitative research, qualitative research, mixed research methodology, experimental research, and the case study research. In fact, these types of research will be discussed later on after the completion of the objectives of research. The objectives of research is that the research is being conducted with the purpose of discovering answer to the questions by making an application of scientific procedure. And the main objective of the research work is to take out the hidden facts yet to be discovered. And also, every research study has its own purpose to be attended. Therefore, the objectives of the research should be designed very carefully. The reason to say and stressing over here in connect to the objectives of research is that the way and the number of the objectives which you derive for a particular research work or the project work which have been assigned for you plays a very important role in your research. In fact, if you have succeeded in deriving the objectives, I am confident that it will give a roadmap for you to do the research and reach the goal. In the continuation of this, of the research objectives, that the research objectives describe what your research projects intend to accomplish, isn't it? This is what it says. The research objectives describe what your research project intends to accomplish. They should guide every step of the research process, including how you collect the data, build your argument, and develop your conclusions. And your research objectives may evolve slightly as your research progress, but they should always line up with the research carried out and the actual content of our paper. So as the primary content delivered on the objectives, before going for the purpose of deriving the objectives, advantages of the objectives for the research, let me say and differentiate the term aim with that of the objective. That is, a distinction is often made between the research objectives and the research aims. A research aim is nothing but it typically refers to a broad statement indicating the general purpose of your research project. It should appear at the end of your problem statement before your research objectives. And your research objectives are more specific than your research aim and indicate the particular focus and the approaches of your project. Now let me say a very important thing, that though you will only have one research aim, but you will likely to have several research objectives. This is what aim is nothing but a one complete part, one complete sentence. In one complete sentence you will derive it, but objectives cannot be. There will be either four, or it may be a five, or some numbers of objectives will be there in as the type of the aim which have been derived with respect to the research. For example, if the research aim is just for the discussion purpose, I have put it over here, that here the aim of the research, as I mentioned here, that to examine contributory factors to muscle retention in a group of elderly people. This is my aim of a research or my project work. Okay, and if I wanted to derive or uh, uh, design objectives, that it will be like this, that the one objective will be to assess the relationship between the sedentary habits and the muscle atrophy among the participants. And second objective, commonly it comes as per my study and literature, that to determine the impact of dietary factors, particularly the protein consumptions and the muscular health of the participants. And the third objective would be, on the particular aim which have been derived, is to determine the effect of physical activities on the participants' muscular health. It is just an example I have put it over here. As I told in the before slide, aim would be just one part, whereas the objectives will be in numbers. Similarly, it may the objectives varies in the department, in the area of the pharmaceutical chemistry, in the pharmaceutics, pharmacology, pharmacognosy, as well as regulatory affairs and pharmacy practice. Objectives depends on the particular course of the work, course of the PhD and the how you are designed the aim. Now the question comes here that why are the research objectives important? Isn't it? Why are research objectives are important? Research objectives are important because they establish, the first point among them is they establish the scope and depth of your project, isn't it? It gives a picture for the reader and as well as the evaluator. This helps you avoid unnecessary research. This is very important and plays a major role in your research. It also means that your research methods and conclusions can be easily evaluated. The second important point why do we need objectives is that objectives contribute to a research design. That is, when you know what your objectives are, you will have a clear idea of what methods are most appropriate for your research. Look at here, isn't it? So that's why we should be very much careful and to be taken very sensitively while designing the objectives. And also, objectives indicate how your project will contribute to the extent of research. That is, research objectives allow you to display your knowledge of up-to-date research, employ or build on the current research methods, and attempt to contribute to the recent debates. This is most important what I wanted to tell you. That is, as we are much concerned with and familiar with the using of the chat GPT, if we go for taking advantage of the chat GPT to derive an objectives, you will get stuck at the mid of the research work. But my advice is that if you wanted to correct your sentences or grammatical part, yes, you can go for taking the support of the chat GPT. But entirely to derive the objectives, if you use the chat GPT, definitely it will create a lot of problem in your research process. That is, a generative artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT can be useful at the various stages of the writings and research process and can help you to formulate your aims and objectives. However, we from the university strongly advise against trying to pass or use artificial intelligence generated text of as your own work. Hope you may be knowing that. The next sentence is that one only. The reason to behind not to use the chat GPT, that artificial intelligence generated outputs are not always original and may be detected by your university's plagiarism checker or a artificial intelligence detector. Specific means that make sure your objectives are not overly vague. Your research needs to be clearly defined in order to get the useful results. Some many a times many researchers make the mistake in deriving the objectives that they'll put it very lengthier objectives, and as the days passes they'll find it very difficult to justify that. The reason behind stressing over the objective is that at the end of your research work, evaluator and even the university authorities will look into that to what extent a researcher has justified the objectives. Thereby they should be objectives should be specific, and the second one is like measurable, that know how you will measure the whether your objectives have been achieved, and most important is achievable, that your objectives may be challenging but they should be feasible, most important, isn't it? Otherwise if the objectives are not met in a right time and in the allotted number of months, then uh, you will face a lot of problem in the submission of your project work. Make sure that relevant groundwork has been done on your topic, or that relevant primary or secondary sources exist. Also ensure that you have access to relevant research facilities like laboratories, library resources, research databases, etc. Now, the most important point what I wanted to tell you is that how to write the research objectives. Is on the basis of some references and with my own experience, I have put it over here. Some points may help you in deriving the research objectives. That is, formulating research objectives has the following 5 steps, which could help researchers uh, researchers develop a clear objective. That is, identify the research problem. This is the first and foremost thing that every uh, researcher should do it. Unless otherwise, without having a research problem, if you go for referring the or performing the literature review, it will be meaningless. We may not come to the end of this, or we may not able to draw a conclusion, uh, either maybe 2 points or 2 objectives or 3 objectives. That's why the first and foremost thing is that to identify the research problem, then review the past studies on subjects similar to your problem statement, that is studies that use the similar methods and variables. Identify the research gaps that the current study should cover the based on your literature review. These gaps should be theoretical, methodological, or conceptual. Then define the research questions based on the gaps identified. And once if you are capable of finding out the gap, and if you define and design the research questions, I assure you that definitely it makes you to derive a sound objectives. The next one is revise the research problems based on the defined research questions and the gaps identified. This is to confirm that there is an actual need for the study on the subject based on the gaps. Then identify and write the general and the specific objectives and incorporate the objectives into the study. There are few cardinal points which I have put it before you, that how to write an objectives. Now the question comes here that what are the advantages of the research objectives? The advantages of the research objectives is adding a clear research objective has the following advantages, that it maintains the focus and the direction of the research and optimizes the allocation of the resources with a minimum amount of time and wastages. And also the most thing is that it saves the time, and the advantages of the objective is that it acts as a foundation for defining the appropriate research questions and hypotheses, and it provides a measurable outcomes that can help evaluate the success for the research, and it determines the feasibility of the research by helping to assess the availability of the required resources. And advantages of the objective is that it ensures the relevance of the study to the subject and its contribution to the existing literature. In the continuation of this objectives, just let me put few uh, sentences in connected to the problems encountered by the researchers, that as the research plays a vital role in the development of the country or the business organization, and the developed countries are also uh, nowadays giving a much importance for the research, because developed countries are developed, they have because of the strong research support system. And in India, the state of the research was not very good before the independence, but now it has taken to the maximum extent. It is left to us and up to us that how many and what type of the technology and what of the tools can be used in order to comply and complete the research work in the stipulated amount of time. Further thing is that with reference to the research, the government realized the importance of the research in framing the policies for the development of the country later on. Keeping in view the intensity of the research going on in the before independence, uh, and quality of the research which was going on, and as the tools have started generating, and most of the countries government have started realizing to frame the rules and regulations and policies. In the modern times, the business organization also realized the importance of the research, and India, being in a developing country, is also striving hard to achieve higher levels of research. Even then, the researchers have got the lot of number of difficulties. Among them, that lack of skilled researchers in the research and development wing. That is, research is as a scientific and systematic investigation into the problem. In many organizations, there is a scarcity of competent researchers due to the lack of scientific training in the research methodology, and also a lack of code of conduct. It's one of the major drawback in many of the research organization, where uh, if there is no proper ethical and moral guidelines, a researcher cannot do a research properly and to conclude the research part. Therefore, they often face a non-cooperation in team members. There is a clean need of a proper distribution of work, assignment of responsibility and answerability, and a well-defined code of conduct for researchers in India. And the most another important part of the researcher is that insufficient interactions. Many a times, a researcher, without doing a proper interaction with the experts or doing a thorough literature review, uh, creates a lot of problem in the research work. And the overlapping of research studies is also one of the major difficulty in the for the researcher. That is due to the lack of proper information and interdepartmental interaction. Many a times there is a duplication of research studies. Sometimes two or more research studies overlap one another, leading to the confusion and misleading results. That's why I have written here in the bracket show the Ganga. That is the platform where universities, in matter of the state university, private university, deemed university, they upload the research activities and the project work in the Shodh Ganga. It facilitates the researchers to refer and to uh, design a aim and objectives to avoid the overlapping of the research studies. Yes, it also one of the major difficulty and the problem where the researcher faces, that is lack of fund and facilities in the organization, and thereby the effort should be made to provide and meet the requirements of research studies by the government agencies as well as the business enterprises. A lack of confidence also has got a role for for a researcher, and lack of literature.